what time it is. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time it says. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is.
Welcome to the Matthew Mania podcast. I'm Matthew Maschler, real estate broker who watches wrestling as if it's my job. And the Matthew Mania podcast, some people think it's about wrestling. It's about anything I want it to be. But of course, most of the time it's about wrestling. And this is the first episode we've done since the birthday bash. So to all of you March birthdays out there, happy birthday. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you were at the birthday bash or watched the birthday bash online, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm glad you came. And obviously, our next show is in Vegas. So that's really only for the people who are going to be in Las Vegas on April 15th, the Wednesday before WrestleMania. Our next show back in Boca Raton after that is August 16th for Summer Smash. So a couple of things I want to talk about. We're going to do a lot of episodes about Birthday Bash, but in this one, I want to talk to you about a small passion project of mine. At the very first Birthday Bash, which I think was 2024, November of 24, celebration of my birthday and all November birthdays, we wrote into the story that someone was going to go through a table, and when I planned it out, well, if someone's going through a table, it's obviously has to be the Spanish announce table. Because if anybody remembers wrestling from the late 90s and 2010s, probably for 20 years, every pay-per-view, someone went through the Spanish announce table. So since someone was going through our table, I wanted it to be the Spanish announce table. And then we brought Ricardo Rodriguez in to be our Spanish announcer. Then I found out we didn't record it. And I said to my guys, I'm like, guys, why would I bring this guy in to record to work the Spanish announce table if I'm not recording? It wasn't just a gimmick to put someone through the table. So we do record our shows in Spanish, and I don't know, I kind of have this dream or fantasy that BRCW en Espanol can become a thing. So we have a separate YouTube channel and separate Instagrams and separate content. We do our wrestling shows, and then we have our Spanish commentary. So maybe one day, I built it probably in the last year from 2 followers to 200. So I think we have 199 right now. On our BRCW en Espanol Instagram. And we have some of the shows up in Spanish, trying to create more Spanish content. And one of the ways I did that was, one of the ways I plan on doing it, is with my friend Falbak. I met Falbak several years ago, maybe 5 years ago, at WrestleMania in Dallas. And he has the largest following of any influencer in Spanish as far as wrestling-related content. And WWE flew him out as an influencer and gave him a press pass to see WrestleMania, and that's where I met him, and we've stayed in touch over the years. So he came in for Birthday Bash. It was the second time he's come in, and he did commentary with Ricardo Rodriguez in Spanish. So check out on YouTube or Instagram, BRCW en Espanol, if you speak Spanish. While he was here, he lives in Guernica, Spain. Guernica, famous for the Picasso painting, Guernica. So he came in for Birthday Bash. While he was here, he interviewed me for his channel. Obviously, we had to do that interview in English because I do not speak Spanish, although we started in Spanish. But while he was interviewing me, I set up my microphone so I could record it. So I have a recording of Falbak interviewing me for his Spanish content. So this episode of the Matthew Mania podcast, I'm going to share with you the interview. So remember, Falbak is interviewing me. We're starting in Spanish, but if you don't speak Spanish, don't worry, I don't either. So we're going to get into English. And he's asking me basic questions of how I started and why I started BRCW and becoming a wrestling fan. So tune in, get ready to enjoy BRCW en Espanol. And remember this day when we had 199 followers, because one day BRCW en Espanol will be a thing.
Muy buenas, fanáticos del wrestling. Aquí me encuentro con el promotor de Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, Matthew Maschler. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien. Hola, Falbak.
Encantado.
Pero no hablo español.
Okay, that's right. So we're gonna switch it to English. So
Un poquito en la escuela, pero lo entiendo.
al menos sabes insultos en español, or no? No.
Lo
Just
entiendo.
some few words, right?
Yo hablo 100 palabras, pero lo entiendo.
Okay. Entonces, so you've been a lifelong wrestling fan, and in 2022 you decided to start a wrestling promotion
Yes.
called BRCW Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. So I want to ask you why and when did you start it, and the challenges you have to face with this promotion.
Well, we started it, we were coming out of COVID, and quite frankly, I missed live wrestling. I missed rooting for and booing my favorite and wrestlers and the heels. And I just missed the whole vibe. And a lot of wrestlers that I knew needed the work. They were either, they were cutting hours and they were doing less live shows. So they needed to get in the ring and they needed to stay in shape and they needed to have a place to create. And a lot of things came together at once. I worked with CCW, the local company here. CCW is a great company. They do shows throughout Florida and Tennessee. And I work with them and I use some of their talent. And it's their ring. I don't own the ring, so it's their ring. And we created something really, really special.
It's easy to manage a wrestling show in terms of management, talent, crew, everything that is involved in a wrestling show.
It's not easy. It's not easy. And you may not have noticed, but we just did our show, our first show of 2026, our second show, 2026, the birthday bash. And I forgot to hire referees.
Yeah. So you only got one referee.
We had two.
That's it.
And they did great, but we had 7 matches, and it was a lot of work on them. And I love my referees. Part of me was wondering where they were, and I realized I didn't hire them.
All right. So you started doing wrestling shows in 2022.
Yeah.
So how did you grow up, develop
So-
a brand, and make yourself a name in the South Florida wrestling space?
Well, I would say it's easy. It's not. But what was easy about it is I hire really good people. The people I hire from CCW and the crew at CCW and the talent I hire. Everybody thinks they can write a show and everybody thinks that they know where creative is. Dealing with the personalities and dealing with the different characters and you may think someone's a face, but they changed to heel. Nobody wants to take the loss. Everybody wants to get over for their character and for their career. And you have to manage a lot of things, and it's not easy. And you create stories, and then sometimes the stories that you create, they paint you into a corner, and you have to figure out how to get out of it. Sometimes you have to figure out where you want to go. You have to plan multiple shows out to create a storyline. If you're going to put a tag team together and put them on a journey that eventually ends up with the championship titles, but then they have to lose those titles, and then you have to deal with the fallout from there. So sometimes you get an idea, and it takes you 5 or 6 shows to get there. And I don't do a lot of shows. CCW does multiple shows a week. AEW and WWE do multiple shows a week. I do 4 or 5 shows a year. So they're bigger events, they're bigger attractions, but the storytelling, I have some talent that says that, I haven't been here in a while, because in AEW, they've traveled the entire world. They've won championships and lost championships. And then they just got back from Australia. I'm like, that was only 2 or 3 shows ago in Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. So we could create this long-term storytelling, but it takes time. And then as we build our audience, the new audience doesn't see what took us a chase that lasted. We still revisit the very first show with some of our rivalries. You saw that in the women's match. Some of the wrestlers from our very first women's championship when we did the inaugural women's championship. So it's long-term storytelling, but I need platforms like this and social media to get those stories out, because sometimes it's hard to tell the story. You can tell some of the story in the ring, but if a fan hasn't watched from one show to the next and paid attention to all the different things that we created, it's hard to see. For instance, Cha-Cha Charlie went through a cake at Birthday Bash.
Our cake.
Our cake.
Yeah, Spanish.
They had a beautiful cake for Neil El Hombre Malo, and I was nervous it was going to say Neil the Heel in Spanish, like in English, right?
Yeah.
But they said Neil El Hombre Malo. It probably should have been Neil El Crudo. And Charlie went through the cake, but people didn't necessarily see if they were way in the back. So some people that were way in the back, they heard there was cake. and they started going to concession stands looking for cake. So you have that issue. You have Big Tito Lincoln and AJ Francis, who've actually teamed up a year and a half ago in another promotion. And I'd like to say it was my brilliance. It was a coincidence. I liked the idea of them together, but apparently I'm not the first one to see it. So it was a nice little reunion for them. And AJ and Cha-Cha have worked together for a little while. So Tito and Cha-Cha are actually in real life from the same country, Dominican Republic. So there's a lot of things I could work with from that match. Even though Cha-Cha and AJ Francis have worked together in multiple promotions, and the very first time we had Cha-Cha and AJ went through the table. I don't know if you were here for that match.
I remember. That was in BRCW Underground, May 2025. AJ Francis went through the table.
And when you were here?
Yeah, and I was there.
All right.
And now Cha-Cha Charlie went through the table. That's
so
right.
I want to say I planned that, and I didn't.
Yeah.
But you've been to 2 shows.
On purpose, right?
So when we got the idea that someone was going to go through a table, we decided it would be the Spanish announce table.
Yeah, because that's the tradition in wrestling, right?
Yeah. So, but part of me wonders, right? If a new fan comes in with their kids, how many of them remember? And I don't know how long they were doing it, but how many of them remember all those years that someone went through a table at the Spanish announce table at a pay-per-view, at a premium live event? So I love the fact, and then word gets out there that I'm still doing this gimmick, right? So, and our fans now, we have fans that come to our shows and don't watch any other wrestling, right? So they caught on that someone always goes through a table? Have they caught on that it's always the Spanish announce table? I don't know, because we don't say that. There's no way for us to talk to the audience, right? We don't do enough podcasting and Instagram afterwards to tell all of these stories. If you were in the audience, did you go back and listen to Matt Raywald on commentary and Ricardo Rodriguez on commentary? But yeah, the very first time someone went to the table, we said, okay, someone's going to the table, it has to be the Spanish announce table. If we're going to have a Spanish announce table, we have to have Ricardo Rodriguez. So we bring in Ricardo Rodriguez, we have a Spanish announce table. I want to publish it. They didn't record. They thought it was my crew, and it wasn't. Some of my crew isn't from wrestling, so they didn't get that it was. They thought it was like a gimmick, and they didn't record. I'm like, no, let's record this, because now we can create content in Spanish and serve. If the Super Bowl taught us anything, it's a lot of people in this world speak Spanish.
That's right.
English is not the only language spoken in America, certainly not the only language spoken internationally. And if I could grow my audience to Spanish-speaking world, arguably there's less competition, right? There's less programming in Spanish of U.S. quality, and my quality in wrestling is the same quality as WWE and AEW. Right, so how much content is there in Spanish? So, I think it's very fitting that I called the company Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, because the town, that city that I live in Florida, it has a Spanish name, Boca Raton.
Yes.
It was named after the rocky waters in our bay, that when the sailors, and originally they were actually, it might have been even the Spanish sailors, but that when the sailors and the traders came through the coast, if they tried to come in the bay was so shallow, and rocks would point out and bite the boats. It was like being bitten by a rat. So those little tiny bites in the boats.
So that's the backstory of Boca Raton.
Is why Boca Raton is called the rat's mouth, because when the sailors would have to clear this area, otherwise they get bitten by a rat. So we live in a Spanish, in a city with a Spanish name. I'm not Spanish. People I live with aren't Spanish or of Spanish descent, but we live in a city named Boca Raton for that reason. So it's kind of a nice little nod to wanting Boca Raton in Espanol.
Yeah.
One thing I'll notice, the city is called Boca Raton. Raton is with a hard O, Raton. A lot of people who live here call it Boca Raton. A lot of the New York accent calls it Boca Raton. And I was actually corrected 15, 20 years ago by the mayor, because I had the New York accent, I called it Boca Raton. And I was corrected by the mayor that it's Raton, which makes sense because in Spanish it's Raton.
That's right.
So it's actually in the city charter and in our bylaws that's the way that the city is pronounced. So now I have to correct people, and I only correct people that I love. But when I started the show, I realized I had to make sure to explain it to the announcers and to the talent, because the name of my company, Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, can be mispronounced as Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. So when you did that introduction just now, and I heard the proper pronunciation
Boca
of
Raton Championship Wrestling.
Tom's name, it made me smile.
That's interesting. So speaking about the Spanish speaking talent, you work with Roma, you work with Chacha Charlie, Ricardo Rodriguez, Dasha, and you have much more talent in the PRCW roster. So you're always trying to push, not only English speaking talent and content, also Spanish speaking content.
Well, I mean, this is America. America is a melting pot of all different cultures and creeds and languages and religions. That's what we're founded on. That's what we were based on, which is why it gets stupid annoying when things like the Super Bowl happen and you have a huge international star and you disrespect them. And I'm not trying to be political, right? I'll say it. I'm right. I voted for Trump. That doesn't mean I can't appreciate an artist in a language that I don't speak. There's lots of languages I don't speak, right? I went to see Andrea Bocelli on Valentine's Day. He was singing in Italian. That didn't bother anyone. I see K-pop Demon Hunters. They're singing in Korean. That didn't bother anyone. So you have a guy like Bad Bunny, who, as a wrestling fan, I'm a huge fan of Bad Bunny, right? He performed on Saturday Night Live multiple times. And he had to make a decision in his career. It's quite easy if you're coming to America and going to sign a recording contract. It's quite easy to change your style to English to try to make sales. And he didn't. It was a choice that he made. Now, others that came before him, it's not to blast on them, right? If Ricky Martin, right, or Gloria Estefan. And Gloria Estefan, it's a very, very famous story. She didn't want to start recording in English, but she made a business decision. So if Bad Bunny can say, well, Gloria Estefan and Ricky Martin, they chose to sing in English, I'm going to keep it in Spanish. He can, because those people came before him, in my opinion. So what better way to celebrate our diversity, right? I didn't go out speaking Spanish language wrestlers, but our very first ladder match for the BRCW Championship had Alan Estuas Martinez, Ariel Levy, and both Spanish speaking, and that's just the world we live in. We're around Spanish speaking and Portuguese speaking and Creole speaking people all the time. That's just the world we live in South Florida, and I don't understand the whole controversy of why people seem to get upset because they couldn't understand the language. And Bad Bunny said on Saturday Night Live in November, if you didn't understand him, you had 4 months to learn, right?
That's right.
He gave fair warning. He actually retracted that, right?
I saw.
You don't have to learn Spanish. You just have to dance. How happy is that? Why would someone shit on that? How great is that? So I didn't mean to get political, but as a wrestling fan, I'm a fan of Bad Bunny because the work he did in the ring was absolutely phenomenal. I was in Tampa for WrestleMania in 2021. Right? Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus The Miz and
John Morrison.
Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Drip Drop, John Morrison. And when all those bunnies came out, I groaned. Oh, look at this. How stupid is this? Until I realized it was The Miz and Morrison busting on Bad Bunny, right? And Bad Bunny was great. And then I'm so mad at myself for not going to Puerto Rico for the show. Was it Backlash?
That's right.
I'm so mad at myself. Why did I go to Puerto Rico? It's an easy flight. Jeff Rhodes, an easy flight. Why did I go to Puerto Rico for Backlash? I'm so mad at myself. So then the Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, I didn't recognize Bad Bunny in the Adam Sandler movie. I thought it was the guy from Saturday Night Live.
Oh my God.
He was the musical guest, hosted Saturday Night Live, multiple appearances on Saturday Night Live. I was watching the movie, and there were wrestlers in it, right? Becky Lynch was in it. I was watching the movie, and I'm thinking, that's the guy from Saturday Night Live. I didn't even realize it was Bad Bunny. So, being a fan of Bad Bunny in wrestling, and in comedy, and in Saturday Night Live, and I don't know his music. I mean, I've heard of the song Booker T. I don't know the song, right? Being a fan of his music, I was excited for the halftime show. But I'm a very happy person. I'm a face.
That's really cool. So we hope PRCW en Español goes up.
Yeah.
And your next show is going to be next month on April. It's going to be in Vegas. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be the first time you do a PRCW show in the WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest week in wrestling. So what's on your mind right now?
When I started the company, I called it Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, not just because of my love for the town I live in, but because I wanted to be very clear to people that we're not expanding. We are not worldwide. We are not coast to coast. We're in Boca Raton. And I can't expand. I have CCW. I'm not going to compete with CCW and expand to Orlando, Miami, and Tampa. That's where they are. So I can grow with CCW, but I'm not expanding Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. We went to Miami twice the night before the Jericho Cruise, and that was fun. We did try to do it once in Boca. We're just too far away. It's about an hour. And if people have to Uber, it's just too far away to get the Jericho crowd to come to Boca. So you know what they say, if Muhammad won't go to the mountain, have the mountain come to Muhammad. So we went to Miami, and I was okay with that. I never wanted to bring the show on the road. I never wanted to go to Vegas or WrestleMania week. But because it was in Vegas already, it was easy. You know, they don't usually repeat a CD, but because they repeated the city, it was easy to understand the format, and we have a really good venue. So, you know what? Let's just have a fun show on Wednesday for anyone who's there. Talent that's there, fans that are there. Let's just get together. That's what I like. That's what BRCW is. It's a happening, right? It's like a club. It's like an underground happening. So if you're in Vegas, talent is in Vegas. I'm not paying travel. If you're in Vegas, or as a wrestler or a fan, come check us out. It's Wednesday, 2 o'clock. Tickets are on BocaRatonWrestling.com. And if you can't make it because your flight's coming in later, at 8 o'clock, we are doing our Red Meat Lovers Club event. It's a social, charitable, fun, food-loving event. You don't have to like or eat red meat to come. You just have to be a happy person and want to be around other happy people. But we will have a lot of red meat, cigars, whiskey, and it will be a lot of fun. But
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you felt that your goal is not to be expansionist. So the first time you're going to do a show outside Florida is going to be in Vegas, but you don't have any intention of doing more shows outside of Florida.
the expansion is online. I have a great vibe in the room. I'm trying to, with your help and other people's help, I'm trying to bring my show worldwide over the internet. Just like you can watch wrestling on television and watch pay-per-views. It used to be the pay-per-view, you used to have to download it. So I'm trying to create the online experience. I'm trying to grow my audience online. So the live show will always be Boca-based. Will we leave Boca for the right reason? Jericho Cruise, Vegas vacation, not doing a show in Saudi, right? Next year. So for the right reason, will we go? Sure. But where I can grow the show is online. Because there's millions of people around the world who like wrestling and who I think would enjoy our show. And there's many more millions of people who enjoy it in Spanish and would be able to enjoy my show, that I could share my love and passion for wrestling with millions of people around the world through the internet. And that's just the beauty of it. I'm a little bit older than you. I remember a world without an internet, without a phone. Right? I was just talking with my son today in college. When I was in college, there was a phone down the hall, right, for all the people in the phone. Now everybody has their own phone. But I sound like I'm 100 years old when I'm talking about this. But I can bring BRCW to you wherever you are, because you're carrying an amazing computer in your pocket.
So you already heard it. Don't miss out the next BRCW show. It's going to be in Vegas, WrestleMania weekend. Here we have Matthew Maschler, the promoter of Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. Don't forget to follow our social medias, BRCW en Español, for Spanish-speaking content. And Naples, Matthew.
And after Vegas, because Vegas is going to be really soon, August 16th, Summer Smash, Harley Cameron versus Shayna Baszler. We are going to have a banger of a match for that women's championship. And you never know where the former BRCW champion, Ashley Severa, Ash by Elegance, is lurking. So, and then there's a lot of other people around. So, Shayna Baszler versus Harley Cameron, August 16th at Summer Smash, which will also feature Matt Riddle versus Steve Macklin for the BRCW Men's Championship. So that's going to be Vegas vacation. It's going to be a fun show. Summer Smash is going to be a banger.
That's right. The card looks awesome. So guys, don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and follow the latest news of Boca Raton Championship Wrestling.
Una pregunta, por favor.
Sí.
¿Cómo se dice en español banger?
Well, banger is like an awesome match, right?
Yeah.
I would say like an adjective which would be like tremendo or increíble.
Incredible.
Yeah, incredible, increíble. Like
Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. Es increíble.
yeah, that's right.
I love it.
So, bye-bye, guys.
Adios.
Adios.
All right. So thank you very much for joining me on the Matthew Mania podcast. I hope you enjoyed that episode, that interview that Falbak did of me for his channel. And thank you for joining us here on mine on the Matthew Mania podcast. If you're in Las Vegas, WrestleMania week, April 15th, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we're having a nooner. 8 o'clock, we're having dinner, an epic beef steak, all you could eat, all you could drink extravaganza. It's going to be disgusting. I hope to see you all there if you're in Vegas and if you can make it. And then Thursday and Friday of that week, you can join us at WrestleCon. And then the Saturday and Sunday, I'm off. I'll be at WrestleMania. Monday Night Raw. Hopefully, I'll have that really, really good seat in that front corner on the entrance ramp. I don't know if I'm on the first row or third. But that's where I'll be Monday Night Raw, and then immediately flying home from Vegas. This will be an interesting episode. I just realized after Vegas, you know what happens after Vegas? Raise your hand if you know, honk your horn, or raise your hand if you know what happens after Vegas. After Vegas, we're going to Columbus, Ohio, to watch my friend Evan be inducted into the White Castle Hall of Fame. That is going to be epic. We have to do an episode. Okay, so thank you for joining us on the Matthew Mania podcast. Check us out in Vegas. And if you're not in Vegas, we'll be back in Boca Raton at the Studio Meisner Park on Sunday, August 16th for our regular show. Back in Miami, November 6th for Cruising for a Bruising the night before the Jericho Cruise. And then if it hasn't been announced, March 14th, and if it hasn't been announced, at the Renaissance Hotel. March 14th at the Renaissance Hotel, we are having a St. Patrick's Day party, celebration, picnic, St. Patrick's Day picnic, extravaganza. So that'll be March 14th. What's the rest of 2027 look like? I don't remember. May do an anniversary show in May. Maybe not. Obviously, Summer Smash 2027. That's going to be on September 6th, I believe. And then we're going to hopefully do a Hanukkah show back at B'nai Israel, if they'll have us after that last birthday bash. That's Hanukkah 2027. And then what are we doing after that? After December 2027, do I have any March 2028 show? Who can think that far in advance? Probably not. So anyway, yes, lots of good things being done at BRCW, at Matthew Mania, at Real Estate Finder. Check us out at Real Estate Finder. If you have always wanted to get your real estate license, if you're a realtor moving to Florida, you want to transfer your license and join me and my team at Signature Real Estate Finder, we would love to have you. And if you want to get your license, if you have your license, or if you would like to buy or sell a house anywhere in the state of Florida, and when I say house, a residence, condo, condominium, co-op, apartment, house, estate, whatever it is, if you are done with your house and unfortunately pass away, need a place to rest eternally, we want to thank our friends at the Gardens Cemetery and Funeral Home on Military Trail in Boca, right by the mall. So if you're addicted to Louis Vuitton, you can be real close over at the Gardens on Military Trail, right off 95, near the mall. The nicest cemetery you've ever seen in your life or afterlife. So thank you for joining us on the Matthew Mania podcast, and we will see you soon.
You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time it says. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time it says. Yeah, got him shook, scared, can't look. We're not afraid of the big bad wolf. First comes the right, followed by the left hook. Execute perfect, this is textbook. If you ever test, make sure you bring the best. Head into the ring with the M on my chest. Any match, bring the ladders and the tables. Lock us in the cage and nobody can save you. When it's war, I'm coming to destroy. Napalm blast, I'm coming with the noise. They chant for the king, the girls and the boys. They saying I'm the best cause they didn't have a choice.
You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. Yeah. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is.